It's time to talk about my childhood. Hey guys, I'm John Stark from ActMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic, and I turned 40 this year. So I've been doing a 40 for 40 series where I review 40 of my favorite films of all time. And yeah, you may think this is silly to be up there, but this is heavyweights. I do love heavyweights. Luckily, there are no sequels, so I didn't have to pick like which heavyweights I like, which is sort of like the problem with doing the Mighty Ducks, is I like all three of them. So with heavyweights, it's like, oh, they never made a sequel. Cool, we're good. We're good to go. Um, it has audio description on Disney Plus. It does. It really truly does. It has audio description. I know. I was surprised too. I was pleasantly surprised because I was like, yes, I can use this for 40 for 40. I'm so excited. Heavyweights. First of all, for those of you on my channel, because I think I have a decent amount of people who are blind, we might use the term husky to describe me. Big boned, thick, plus size. You know, those kinds of terms have been used to describe my physical form before. On top of it, now I'm hairy. So, and I was big back when Heavyweights came out, so I felt like this film spoke to me, you know, on a different level. I was like, oh, it's a film where all the kids are big. Thank God, you know. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, I've always enjoyed this film. Watching it as an adult, and even though I've seen it as an adult, but I watched it again, there's something about watching it when you're 40 and you start noticing little things that really just sort of pop out at you. First of all, I did take the trip down memory lane of the IMDb cast list. And in addition to the people that I remember being in the film, obviously like Kenan Thompson and Shaun Weiss, and Ben Stiller and Jerry Stiller and Ann Mara, we have, deep in the cast, Paul Feig played Tim. And way at the end, if you go all the way down to the end, you'll notice Judd Apatow is credited. Also, Alan Covert is credited here without any help from Adam Sandler whatsoever. So kudos to him for for being in a this is not a Happy Madison production. There are no other Sandlerites in this. It's just Alan Covert manages to pop up in this. So good for him. And I will tell you, for those people who are like, it's a kid's film, it's probably not elevated. You know who wrote this shit? Judd Apatow. So the writer is Judd Apatow. So yeah. At the same time, I'm going to have to admonish Judd Apatow in a minute, so we'll come back around to that. And Judd Apatow and how he used to be a little bit racist. We'll come back around to that in a minute. But I do love Heavyweights, and I still love Heavyweights, even though I once you see it, you can't unsee it. I definitely, yes. So, it's fun. It's a camp movie. I had been to camp before. My camp was not this fun. My camp, I had to do, the most ridiculous things. Just, you know, we swam in a lake, but then we had to worry about bacteria getting into our ears, so we were constantly having to put, like, alcohol in our ears afterwards, whatever, to kill off whatever bacteria was in the lake. Meanwhile, these kids are just diving in. They're like, yeah, we're in a lake. And I was like, I didn't have that experience. I guess your lake is purified. Sons of a bitches. Anyway, and they had go-karts. I didn't have go-karts. I had, like, tennis. I had horseback riding. I had archery. And I was one of those kids, too, that I probably would have enjoyed archery, but they warn you immediately about doing it right. Otherwise, the little feather thing at the end of the bow can get stuck through your finger. And I was like, no, sir, thank you very much. I mean, I'm sure archery is fun, and I've always wanted to do it. And I had like a Nerf bow and arrow as a kid. But after hearing that, I was like horrified. I was like, oh my God, what if that happens to me? I was like, I don't want this thing going through my hand. So, I would have loved go-karts and the blob and, some of the other things that these kids have in camp. But it does kind of mimic the camaraderie, at least, that you have with your bunkmates. That's true. That was real. I made friends at camp, as most kids seem to have no problem doing when put into a situation. You end up finding common ground generally with pretty much anybody, except for the random bullies. But luckily, this film doesn't feature any bullies in the kids. So all the kids can band together and be against the big bully, Ben Stiller, who comes in and buys this camp from his broke-ass parents, who are not playing his parents in this film. They're playing camp owners. And I think that's really weird because later on in the film, Ben Stiller plays his own father. It's like, but your actual father is in this film. These are the things that you think about when you're 40. So he does, and poor Ann Mira and Jerry Stiller have to bow out and leave, and they leave their camp to their son, Ben Stiller, who plays this eccentric exercise guru running now a fat camp, and he wants to actually make these kids lose weight. They just thought they were going to have fun and, learn to love each other as they are, I guess, all summer long. Nah. No. He's got plans, and he's trying to sell like an infomercial, and he's extreme. And his hilarious little sidekick Lars gives me one of my most memorable, and I've tried to use it in other situations and nobody ever gets the reference. I've tried to do the buddy system before. I've tried to make that joke happen, and I feel like I'm the only person who's ever seen Heavyweights, because every time I do that, nobody ever calls back buddy. Anyway, so yes, it's a fun film, and it leads to the kids taking over the camp, which is exactly what a film in the 90s should be. I don't think kids get films like this anymore. Where do the kids' films go? Are they all going to streaming? Do they all suck? Like, I've yet to see a kids' film that is actually, like, proliferated like a lot of the 90s films did. Like, 90s kids, we had great films. What do you guys have nowadays? Like, where are your films at? They're all on the Disney Channel? Like, our films went to theaters. We had Mighty Ducks. We had Angels in the Outfield. We had The Sandlot. We had Heavyweights. We had, I could just keep listing films. And they all went to theaters. And we love them still to this day. So, they still have fans. And even if you go further back, you've got The Goonies, you've got Karate Kid. I don't know at what point kids stopped getting movies made for them that were actually good, that were actually decent, that were low budget and just aimed perfectly at the right audience. But somewhere along the way they did. Somewhere along the way people just gave up and stopped making those films. They used to be released all the time. Not even all of them hit. Some of them were just kind of like, oh, did anybody see Monkey Trouble? No? Dunstan Checks In? No? All right, well, we'll just keep making them anyway. So, I really don't know what happened with that. But I wish I could go back and help Sean Weiss's career and just kind of push him. I wish he had really made it. I wish Sean Weiss. I know he's done a couple things, but he is not. He's not as big as he was back in the day. And I don't mean weight size. He actually has lost a lot of weight. The last time I saw him in something, he was down significantly from his weight in the 90s. But actually, I think he's funny. I think he has talent. I think he has a natural personality on screen. And I'm sad that his career just kind of ended as a child actor. I think he should have kept going. But let's talk about Keenan in this film. Keenan plays Roy, and Judd Apatow saw it fit to make some jokes. And also, this gives a good time to talk about defaulting with terms to narration, or just completely whitewashing a film entirely. The audio description never mentions anybody's race, which I guess is one way to go about it, because technically I think Kenan Thompson is the only member of color in the cast, from what I remember visually, unless you want to call Sean Weiss's Italian, like olive skin, I don't know, some other ethnicity, but they're playing him pretty Italian. I don't know that anybody's ever looked at him and been like, maybe he could be something else. So pretty much you've got Kenan as Roy amidst a sea of white, and when he pops on the screen, he's the kid with curly hair. Cool. That's one way to describe him. I guess because the narrator didn't want to describe every single character as white or just Kenan as black, we just decided not to bring it up. So if you're looking for representation in this film and you're not white, then you could, I guess, find it in whatever character you relate to. You could just pretend they are whatever they are. You don't really have to. If you've been blind your whole life and you don't necessarily know the races of all these characters, they could all be black, I guess, is the... They could all be white. They could all be Hispanic. I have no idea. But they're all racially ambiguous, thanks to the audio description. But there is something that happens, though, with Roy, which is odd, because it's funny that nothing was mentioned about his skin color when in his character description, because there's definitely a moment when Ben Stiller inherits the camp and he's looking out at the audience and he says, I see, and he's trying to be inspirational. And he looks at one kid and he says, I see the future CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And then he looks at Roy and he says, I see a famous rap artist. And then he looks at the British kid and says, I see the president. And so when he looks at Roy's potential to him is rap artist. That's what he sees in Roy. He doesn't see Fortune 500 company in Roy. He doesn't see President of the United States in Roy. He sees rap artist in Roy, the only black kid at camp. So later on in the film, when Ben Stiller is searching their bunk for snacks, because obviously they have them, which they do. They're very creative at hiding them. There's a moment where he takes some stuff away and then he's like, and he tries to be nice, and it's faking out. He fakes out, but he offers to hug Kenan again, Roy. And so he goes in for the hug with Roy and then immediately pats him down. So he pats down only the one black kid at camp, just him. And then guess what he finds? He finds a Pez dispenser in his socks, like in his socks / shoes, down at the bottom. And then he says, my man here is packing. Well, what do we usually use that term to mean? Usually we say packing heat, right? And that's usually like a gun term. So, of course, the one black kid at camp would be packing something somewhat gun-related. And why not, right? Because that's all black people are good for, is, I guess, carrying guns. So, of course, in Heavyweights, we're going to make the same joke about Roy's apparently dismal future as a rap artist who is obviously going to be packing a gun at some point in his future. So then to even highlight the whole thing, he takes the Pez dispenser and empties it out so that every single one of the little candies hits the floor like a bullet, like you're emptying a gun and you're taking the bullets out, and each candy hits the floor, just in case you didn't get the joke, just in case you were like, I wonder what he's trying to do here with this Pez dispenser. Oh, it's like a gun. Oh, I get it. He's packing heat, but it's a Pez dispenser. And you can innocently, like I did as a kid, I didn't even pick up on that joke. But now I'm 40 and I can't not see that joke. And I can't not look at Judd Apatow and be like, do you have a problem? Do we need to talk? Do we need to have a conversation, Judd Apatow? Because that joke was inappropriate and made at the expense of a person's race. It wasn't made at the expense of just like a fat kid. They're all fat. So I mean, you could make any sort of joke. That's the whole thing about the film, is that the film is constantly Ben Stiller's irrational expectations for their weight loss. So any one of those jokes would work on any of the kids. He could have found any sort of candy on Russ. Not Russ. Russ is his Mighty Ducks name. Roy. On Roy. And it would have been fine. He could have just, patted him on the back and then removed like I don't know, more salami. I don't know what Russ would... Roy! Damn it. Why do you call him his Mighty Duck name? I don't know what Roy would have on his back, but I don't know. That one kid had chocolate on his stomach, so it's not that weird. Maybe something like that. But no, they had to go for the gun reference with the only black kid at camp. So, thanks, Judd, for casual racism now in one of my favorite films that now I can't unsee. So, damn it. I wonder if Keenan thinks about stuff like that. I wonder if Keenan, later on, if he ever writes a book, I want to read about that and see what are his reflections on his time at Heavyweights. Does he look back on that now and go, I don't think that was great. I don't think that was a great representation for my people. So, it'd be like if I was offered, if somebody was like, oh, we see there's a blind YouTuber. We should get him to play the new Mr. Magoo. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Go away. So, yeah, I don't know that was necessarily the best representation. But anyway, this film is still a huge part of my childhood. They didn't make a lot of films with fat kid leads. It just didn't happen. And I was. And this film spoke to me on a very different level. And it was like seeing the whole cast, right? And everybody was fat. And the camp counselor who gets the girl in the end is fat. And it was just so nice to actually have this one thing that felt special for me, even though it's now slightly ruined by Ben Stiller. And so please forgive my grade, because I'm very aware of it. But that's a conversation we need to have with Judd Apatow. That is a conversation for him. In the meantime, this is 40 for 40. I picked it because it is one of my favorites of all time. It's representative of a lot of 90s Disney films that I could have put here. They don't necessarily mean as much to me. I love the hell out of Iron Will. I think that's a great film. For a while there, I was like, I'll do that. I'll go play with sled dogs. Let's do that. I want to run the idea. But I don't think any one of them felt like it represented me as much as Heavyweights did. So I, of course, will give Heavyweights an A+. I think the audio description is nice, other than, I guess, its choice to just make everybody racially ambiguous by never defining any of them. So, cool. We whitewashed Keenan into racial ambiguity, which I guess is better for the jokes that are made for his character if you don't know. But I feel like most people, if they're looking at this, I think they're going to know it's Keenan. I think people know Keenan is black. I just don't think that they know that he's the only one at the camp that is. Because there are a lot of background characters, but I don't remember there being any other black kids at camp. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'm leaving frustrated, but I'm glad I got to talk about this film with you guys. And don't forget to share the hashtag Describe It To Me challenge with other YouTube creators and get them to try to, especially film YouTubers, try to get them to review a film with audio description on. They should be interested in it. They should be interested in, like, what is this thing, at bare minimum. Let's see if they'll do it. And that is it for me. I have a website, macthemovieguy.com. You can go to Twitter, Instagram, or Threads and follow me at macthemovieguy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org, where you can find out what has audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. And they'll let you know what, who is narrating what. Who's narrating what. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll watch something else, and I will see you guys on the other side.